Bendy and the Ink Machine started as a small indie title, however grew in popularity fast thanks to its unique design and story. The story of Joey Drew Studios and our character Henry only grew deeper over the game's 5 chapters, yet some things still remain unsolved, and with a new game on the horizon, Bendy and the Dark Revival, maybe it's time we try and put those mysteries to bed. That's what we're exploring today. Greetings gamers and welcome back to Top 10 Gaming. I'm Connor Monroe and this is the Top 10 Scary Bendy and the Ink Machine theories. Let's do it. In at 10, Max Fleischer. Now, if you watched the map hack game theory for Bendy and the Ink Machine, I'm sure you already know who Max Fleischer is. If not, or if you forgot, Max Fleischer is actually the pioneer of animation. While Walt Disney is more commonly thought to be, Max Fleischer is actually the one you should credit. Walt Disney, however, was a master of marketing, advertising, and PR, which in essence ended up wiping Fleischer's name and studio from the history books. MatPat believes that Joey Drew, the one who invited us back to the studio at the beginning of the game, was not inspired by Walt Disney, but Max. And it makes sense. Bendy, while similar to Mickey Mouse, bears more of a resemblance to Bimbo, a cartoon dog from the Fleischer Studios, as well as a link between Alice Angel and Betty Boop, who ended up being Bimbo's girlfriend. It's a long story. Betty Boop started out as a dog. Why is this scary, you may ask? Well, don't you find it troubling how before that video, or even maybe this one, you probably hadn't heard of Max Fleischer or Fleischer Studios at all? Like how Disney basically wiped out any mention of his name or their work? Because I do. I find that horrifying, especially for a superpower like Disney, who basically runs the world. In at 9, the Dark Revival. Benevolent demon, someone has reawakened the dark. It's an interesting phrase that was tweeted out letter by the Bendy and the Ink Machine Twitter during the build-up to the reveal of the Dark Revival. There are also additional audio logs that were released by the Ink Machine's YouTube channel, which I'm pretty sure is called Joey Drew Studios, that take place between chapters 4 and 5, where Henry talks about angels and demons and how he feels like he's being watched by someone else, something hidden in the shadows. Well, considering how someone is reawakening the dark and is watching, who could it be? And what is the dark? Some seem to think that it's Bendy, which is interesting, because this whole time we've only seen a Bendy who's imperfect, like Susie's Alice. He's angry like a demon, so wouldn't the benevolent demon be referring to him? Especially since this game isn't a prequel or a sequel, so Bendy hasn't been defeated yet. And if that line is said by Sammy Lawrence like we assume, why would he warn his benevolent demon about himself? Instead, it could be the perfect Bendy, who, from my understanding, we have yet to see in the games. There has been a perfect Alice and Boris, but no perfect Bendy. And maybe that's the dark thing that's being revived. I mean, after all, a demon would consider a perfect version of themselves dark. In at 8, Joey is Bendy. Or at least, was meant to be. A big twist at the end of the final chapter was the reveal that the main antagonist, the evil Bendy we'd been against this whole time, was a pure ink monster. That there was no person behind them like Susie was behind evil Alice, which left fans disappointed. However, there is evidence that points to the fact that Joey was planned to be revealed as Bendy, but this was changed for whatever reason. In the game files, there is an unused audio file of Henry saying Joey in a surprising way. Now, without getting really technical, the way the Bendy team organized their files for Chapter 5 was with capitals. Every scene's audio files were using alternate caps lock. One scene's files would be in all caps, the next would be lowercase, the one after that would be all caps again, etc. This audio file was paired with one of Henry saying the end, as he does when we discover how to beat Bendy with the film reel for the end. However, they both have capital letters, and then the next scenes go to lowercase, having to do with the Beast Bendy fight, and then we're in Joey's house with caps again, meaning that this audio file was meant to play after the end, but in the same scene. Most likely where it was revealed that Joey Drew was Bendy, since we wouldn't see Joey for another 2 scenes. And at 7, who are the other victims? As we can infer, or as you learned in MatPat videos or even on your own, there is actually 2 separate sets of creatures in this game. One set made completely of ink that melt away after being killed, and another, characters filled with a soul whose bodies stick around after dying, like evil Alice. However, while we know some of the souls in the victims, like Susie and Alice, there is straight up a whole hall of dead Borises strapped to operating tables. How would they be sticking around unless they had souls? They have to have souls, but whose souls are they? We don't know, and that's the problem. There are an unknown amount of unnamed victims just lying around that we totally ignore. How are we supposed to just deal with the fact that there are so many victims sacrificed to this machine? Who are they? Where did they come from? Did Joey kill them? Was it someone else? Was it Bendy? Was it the projector? Alice? We don't know, and that's pretty damn horrifying if you ask me. Not to mention all the different incarnations of the Butcher Gang that are also there. And at 6, what is the Butcher Gang? The Butcher Gang was introduced in Chapter 3 of the games through a poster, yet in the timeline of the game, the Butcher Gang is a Bendy cartoon produced by Joey Drew Studios and presented in Silly Vision, starring the villainous Butcher Gang trio. It is released in 1935. However, the members, Charlie, Barley, and Edgar, are drawn nothing like their in-game counterparts, the Fisher, the Piper, and the Striker. They are horribly mutilated and destroyed, with mouths where they shouldn't be like on top of their heads, body parts swapped out for office supplies or plungers. I mean, the Fisher's head is even hanging on a fishing rod for God's sakes. But this all begs the question, why? Of course, it could just be because it makes them creepy or because why not, but there could be something more. I mean, there's no way they're just like this because they got misprinted by the ink machine, right? Because no matter what, if they're just made of ink or if they have a soul, they still look the same. This could very well be a photocopy of a photocopy situation, where that model on the test that you need to label is just a giant black blob unlike the one you studied, but I don't think that's the case. There is something wrong here, we just need to find out what. Halfway through it at number 5, you are Bendy. Well, this was certainly not what happened, that's for sure. But nevertheless, it was still an interesting theory, brought on by the idea that there are both good and evil versions of characters, like we saw with Alice Angel's original voice actor Susie and her new one Allison. The idea that as the creator of the character, our love for these characters is pure, and while there is an evil Bendy, there was no perfect one. So logic only dictates that to fight off the evil Bendy, we would need to go through the machine ourselves to try and gain that power to fight against him, right? I mean, Susie had even described to us what it was like to be a searcher, so even I thought that it would make sense to have us go through the machine, maybe even a couple of times to end up becoming the perfect Bendy. Alas, that was not the case, and to defeat Bendy, we had to show him a the end screen, which is anticlimactic, at least in a sense, since we had built up this fight and twist in our heads, only for the end to be the killing blow, or I guess the end, but I guess it still makes sense. And at 4, someone's watching. Like described previously, according to Henry and those additional audio logs, he is feeling watched, and based on the Dark Revival title, it feels like there's something watching from the shadows, maybe meaning the ink, but who is it? That's a good question. However, from my understanding, there is a character that we didn't really have an answer for. Wally Franks. While yes, at the end it's revealed that he had left and is most likely running Frank's handyman service, but while he isn't at the company, neither were Thomas Connors and Allison Pendle. They are married and alive in real life. Yet, they're revealed as Boris and Perfect Alice, or at least are meant to be. So why would they get 2 versions? Because they aren't the same reality. Hell, the actual game could just be a story. But that leaves Wally's ink version. Where is he? Well, maybe he's looking on from the shadows, watching Henry, making him feel uneasy, and will play a bigger role in the next game, Bendy and the Dark Revival, where he'll be revived from the ink. At least, it's possible. And at 3, our mind. Like I just said, it's also possible that none of this was real, that instead, it's all in our mind. And while it could be Joey's mind, what if we were in the hospital? Yes, I'm pulling a crying child here. Clearly, the game characters represent real people. I mean, we straight up have real life names for these characters, but how can they be ink monsters while also being able to send letters to Joey? The ink monsters aren't real. Simple. Why do I think that it's our mind we're trapped in? Easy. A newspaper only able to be viewed by boundary breaking or going through the game files. That says a cartoon artist was found dead at their desk. Maybe we're not actually dead, but fighting for our lives in the hospital. And this game is our brain's way of processing what's going on, of understanding death. And that's why everything seems so surreal. The sudden shift to Joey's house isn't us snapping back to reality, it's the other side, the ultimate end. It's the afterlife, with Joey, our old pal, waiting to greet us. But that's not all. We're being kept alive, most likely on life support, hence why we go through the game again, and as the lens of truth reveals, we've done this 414 times. Times that we should have died, but our family won't let us, hoping that one day we'll wake up, that we'll be revived from the dark. That person we feel watching us, it's our family from the hospital room. It's our partner, our kids, wanting us to come home, come back to the old studio. They have something they need to show us. Penultimately, in at number 2, hallucinations. While the entire game could be a figment of our imagination, or could be the most real thing in the world, what if we're not the ones seeing things? What if instead we're seeing things through the eyes of Joey, that has some form of issue that's causing him to hallucinate? This theory started thanks to the game's ending, ironically, where after you complete the game the first time, you wind up in Joey's house talking to him. Then you hear the words that started the game in the first place, "Come visit the old workshop, there's something I need to show you." And then you head through a door on your right, and bam, you're back in chapter 1 and can play through the game again. Obviously, this is meant to be symbolic, but what if it's more literal than we first anticipated? What if Joey's house is rather his mind, and the studio we go through is what he sees, or saw? It would explain the potential murders that he committed, thinking that there's some form of ink monster, and it's better than saying none of this was real and it's all a dream, right? Based on when it was proposed for FNAF. Everyone hates that, so... Finally, in at number 1, we're dead. Or, in fact, this is us moving on. This is the trip to the afterlife. I mean, we do get the choice between the angel and demon paths, right? What if that's us choosing whether we go to heaven or hell? Like how we feel about our own actions. While it may not change the outcome of the chapter, it does change the final image we see. So it does indeed have an impact, even if it isn't the one we think it will have. We are represented by a poisoned ink vial in chapter 1. So maybe we somehow poisoned the work environment at Joey Drew Studios. Maybe we started what would eventually become the end of the company by planting discourse in the mind of our coworkers, or by suing the company for stealing our original character, since Bendy wasn't originally approved by Joey until most likely after we left, which I have to say is more of a Walt Disney move than a Max Fleischer move, but oh well. Maybe this is us accepting where we are, laying dead at our desk, and this is us somehow reliving our life through what we loved most. Our characters. There we have it, friends, the top 10 scary Bendy and the Ink Machine theories. Now, it's hard to go in depth with these theories since this is an 11-minute video, so if there are things I missed or left out, I'm sorry, but I had to cut it for the sake of time. I got as much information as I could. However, if you want to talk about these in the comments, go for it. We love encouraging community interaction and being able to talk about your own theories openly, so be respectful in the comments as well. I'm watching you. However, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you all so much for watching. I have been and shall remain Connor Monroe, and I'll see you in another video.